First of all, thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to address such a distinguished audience, and also congratulations for making DEFEA, both the exhibition but also the conference, a central feature of the debate in Greece and the process of developing a defense industry. Now, what the Minister of Defense, Chod, General Houpis, and Major General Bouras have already said was music in my ears. I would subscribe to all of them, of the remarks, and I might actually echo some of the things they said. But since national security is part of my job title, I would zoom out a little and approach the issue from a slightly broader perspective. Now, obviously, I'm not breaking any news by saying that this is a more complex, by the day, international and regional security environment. And there are three main reasons for that. The first is increasing strategic competition, both between global players, but also between regional players. And that makes for some strange bedfellows, some alliance of opportunity, which are complicated the situation even further. The second reason is what we call hybrid warfare. General Houpis made a reference to that. It's no longer, and that has been the case for some time, of course, just black and white. There are a lot of shades of gray. So it's not always clear who is the opponent, whether an action is isolated and coincidental or part of a broader strategy. And in that world of hybrid warfare, it's not only states we're talking about, it's also non-state actors. Now, the Houthis became almost a household term, word in the last few weeks for those of us working on defense and security, but there are other players as well. And of course, the third reason is, I guess, today's topic, which is emerging and disruptive technologies. And technology, of course, has always been part of the problem, but can also be part of the solution. Now, and I guess there are two important questions today. How can we benefit from EDTs, and how can we protect ourselves from EDTs? Now, General Bouras mentioned those 9 priority technology areas for NATO, and the EU's list is not much different. Allow me very briefly to repeat those: artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, quantum technologies, biotechnologies, and human enhancement technologies, hypersonic systems, space, novel materials and manufacturing, energy propulsion, and next-generational communication networks. Now, I do not pretend to understand much more than the title for most of those areas. Thank God we have good people in our security sector, but also in the defense companies who do understand what that means and what are the new trends. But one thing is clear, there is a revolution in military and security affairs underway, and we are still trying to understand the exact form and the impact and the consequences. And of course, the West, or this is not, those new technologies are no longer the monopoly of great powers. This is spreading to an increasing number of medium-sized powers. And the West, well, let's not be too pessimistic, but I think it's accurate to say that our technological advantage is shrinking vis-a-vis some of our main competitors. So I guess we need to move a bit faster and more decisively. Now, so how can we benefit from those transformative technologies, and how can we protect ourselves from the impact? I have a short list of basic guidelines and recommendations. First of all, increased awareness, be in a position to quickly identify trends, drivers, challenges, and opportunities. And this is easier said than done because we have a slightly old mindset. So all of us need to adapt to this rapidly evolving security environment. Second point, lessons learned. I guess this is something I've been repeating almost daily. Lessons learned from Ukraine, lessons learned from Gaza, from Nagorno-Karabakh, and so on and so forth. By the way, since I mentioned hybrid warfare, it's good to remember that what is happening today in Ukraine and also in Gaza, there's a kinetic war underway, but there is also an information war. So strategic communications, cyber, these are indispensable parts of our daily struggle. So lessons learned from those conflicts, and of course, studying the lessons is obviously not enough. We need to implement them as well, and here is where I think both the EU and NATO is lacking slightly behind. Now, there's this proverb, necessity is the mother of all invention. One can understand why Ukraine, but also Russia, is moving faster. They're also using cheaper systems which can be produced in greater quantities. Now, we don't have the luxury of time. Things are moving so fast, and our procedures, I am afraid, are a bit slow. I can understand why, and I can see the problems, accountability and all that, but we need to accelerate the process. Then, perhaps the most difficult thing of all, it was mentioned several times, change our mindset and our strategic culture. This means changing our educational establishment, the national security educational establishment. This means changing our training. This means accepting that the new mix of forces will be different, and there will be many more autonomous systems in all branches of the armed forces, but also in the security establishment in general. These are not easy changes, and I'm not only referring to Greece. Those problems apply to almost everyone. But this is something we need to do. Then, well, there are opportunities. It was mentioned that NATO is doing a lot of things. Diana can be an important accelerator. We need to look at possible opportunities and take advantage of all possible programs, be part of them, trying to benefit. But of course, the EU, if we had this discussion, let's say 10, 15 years ago, the EU would not have been a significant player. Things have changed. Yes, the speed, well, we could have moved faster, but the EU is doing so much nowadays. There are so many opportunities for member states. We need to be dynamic players. And it was mentioned this morning that a lot of Greece SMEs are active participants into various projects. We need to do more. And of course, talking about SMEs and startups, which are the most important dual-use innovators, and also talking about a change in our mentality and mindset. Talking from a public sector perspective, we have to treat the private sector as our key partners. We are on the same side, and there are very few things we can do without the participation of the private sector. So we need to change that as well, and I think the new initiatives by the Ministry of Defense are moving in the right direction. So take advantage of opportunities in the context of NATO and the EU, and also it was mentioned so far, with very few exceptions, who have been buyers and clients, and this needs to change. We want to be partners in a broad range of defense and security procurement projects. Now, again, let's be pragmatic. It's not going to be a partnership of equals, at least not in the beginning, but one has to start from somewhere. And then let me finish with a few catchphrases. So I mentioned the change of strategic culture. Resilience is now a key objective, both in the context of the EU, in the context of NATO. This has become a top priority, and we need to invest in that. And of course, everything we're talking about, national security, this is not only about whole of government approach. This is about whole of society approach, and I think the Nordics, there are things we can learn from their own national security doctrines involving not just the public sector, not just the security agencies, but the whole of society. Then I mentioned the need to accelerate our processes, the need to cut or reduce red tape. This is a problem with democratic countries. There's the issue of accountability. We have to get things through our parliament, and there has to be public scrutiny. That's unavoidable. But having said that, let's try to move a bit faster. Then our toolbox. Now, we need to add new tools there to our security toolbox, and we also need to have our antennas raised and continuously functioning, and methods and tools like foresight, horizon scanning, and red teaming can be very useful, again, in the logic of identifying in a timely fashion trends, threats, but also opportunities. And something I forgot to mention when it comes to changing our strategic culture and way of thinking, of course, we have been saying for a long time that there are more than the three traditional environments where the armed forces and the security sector are functioning. It's not just about land, air, and sea. It's increasingly now about cyberspace, but also space. And let's not forget that everything now, it's happening much faster. So time could be a possible sixth dimension. And of course, all of those dimensions are strongly interlinked and connected. And of course, my last, one of my two last words is, let's try to think out of the box. I understand the logic for highly structured bureaucracies, and most of the time they help, but in some cases, let's encourage out-of-the-box thinking. Now, last word. None of the things we discussed today will happen overnight. And we need continuity, and continuity assumes two things: that there is broad political support, support across the much of the political spectrum, and that those basic assumptions and objectives are also adapted by society as a whole. So these are two important requirements if we want our efforts in the security and national defense sectors to succeed in the long term. Thank you.